Last Kevin Corley. The Social Democrats will be supporting this motion, and we commend the Sinn Féin deputy for bringing it to the floor. Look, it's an eminently sensible motion. It doesn't lend itself to a big grandiose speech. I think most of us who are living and operating in the city are brought to our senses on several dozen times a day with the reverberations of fireworks and all that that entails. And I suppose we can feel ourselves lucky that we're not the ones with the sensory issues who are being really impacted by them. And as has been said across the floor several times now, well, fireworks have always been a feature of life in urban cities. This year it's earlier, it's louder, it's more prevalent, and it's clearly suggested that there's an underlying problem there. I'm going to touch to some of the issues that I've witnessed in my own some positive initiatives that I think could be used to counter this that have been eroded over the last couple of years in relation to policing, both in the north inner city and across Dublin as a whole. For me, I believe that democracy is a forum, and it works best when the state agencies, the community leaders and the community themselves are impacted, are all sitting around the table having discussions, looking for solutions. That worked very well at times in Dublin through the community policing initiatives and the community policing meetings that used to happen over the last couple of years, that have, possibly as a consequence of COVID-19, although they're kind of running out of steam in the sense that you're getting a little bit more angry before that, and I think some of the COVID has been used as an excuse not to have them. The community policing meetings have stopped. We've just come to a complete stop during the course of COVID. There's been no attempt to use innovation or online social Zoom meetings or anything like that to have them. They've just stopped. In the south inner city, for example, the last community policing meeting was held in October of 2019. In my own constituency in Dublin Central, there was an initiative, the Community Policing Forum, which was actually one of the first in its kind in Europe, which had really good intentions at the start, and I would have been critical somewhat in terms of how it developed, but certainly in its original intent, it was fantastic in the sense that it has an office right in the heart of a constituency that had a oftentimes troubled relationship with the guards, and it was designed so community leaders could be an interface between a community that was distrustful of the guards and the Gardaí, and for a period of time it certainly worked very well. And last year, for no apparent reason, that was defunded, closed up shop, and it was replaced with nothing. The meetings that used to be held in schools around the area where the community could get together with the Gardaí and trash out the problems simply stopped. And I can definitely see that if those structures were there now, if they had access to those structures, not if the pandemic didn't exist, but if we had community leaders who were organising Zoom meetings in residential areas and could get together with the police and guards, some of these issues would be stopped, because there was never the case that the young people themselves were ever at the meetings, but the community leaders, the leaders of the local boxing clubs, the leaders of the local youth clubs, the people that would organise the pill sessions and talk to the young people, they would be there. And you'd be able to relay the fact that actually, you know what, well, you're just having a bit of crack letting off a banger. Actually, that's troubling a kid with autism who has sensory issues. There's a woman up the road whose dogs are gone berserk, and as a consequence, it's increasing her anxiety. But we don't have that now. And I think we need to demonstrate a little bit of leadership in terms of getting those structures back on the ground, because they are certainly lost. There's also been a breakdown between the relationship that actually for a period of time the guards in my constituency, and I'm sure throughout the rest of Dublin, when we had more community policing, and I mean community policing, that was actually about engaging with young people. When that was at its fullest, when that was at its best, that was actually guards who knew the names of little Johnny or little whoever, and you could actually have a conversation with them. And now, as we've eroded community policing away from our communities again to the detriment of those relationships are gone. And what you have now is bang, 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 and fireworks going off, and nobody even knows the names of the young people that stoned them. And that's actually a bit of a recent departure, because there was a period of time where if there was a young person who was looking like they were at risk of getting into trouble, engaging in some sort of deviant behaviour, there was always somebody who knew their name and could go to them, could call them and could have a chat with them. And that seems to have broken down, and it certainly is a loss. There was an initiative when all of us canvassed very recently in the last 6 months, and I'm sure when you were knocking at the doors, one of the things you were hearing was from older people, certainly, that they didn't see any local guards around anymore. And I think that's a great shame. It's a shame in the sense that it increases anxiety amongst the older population, and it makes them feel less safe. There was a fantastic initiative with an unfortunate acronym in the North Inner City called the Small Area Policing Initiative that was going on for a couple of years under a former commissioner. That was simply a case that the guards knocked at every single door and went in and had a chat. And most of the people you were having chat with were older people. That's, again, it's gone. And it's a sad state of a modern policing force that we can't engage constructively with constituents in a manner that we know is actually works and has positive outcomes. There is the people letting off the bangers. So when you hear something going on like this, I always want to ask the question of who's benefiting from this? Who's benefiting from this noise? Who's benefiting from this infiltration of fireworks into our communities? And I promise you, for every banger you hear going off or every rocket taken off, somebody's making a profit. And the fact that we're engaging with the fact, I don't feel there's any moralising happening in the chamber tonight. I'm not suggesting that there is. Everyone's been quite considerate of not doing that. But I suppose in some of the conversations that I've heard on the radio in relation to it, there's a bit of moralising. But what I'm actually not hearing about is who are these gangs that are clearly benefiting extortionate amounts of money from smuggling these fireworks in one way or another. And I know we have an Operation Tombolo that's going on the streets and in the communities, but is it actually effective in its being able to take the head of the snake? And I haven't been convinced that is yet the case. I do want to finish, but just with a caveat, and the caveat is that it's been raised several times tonight. Halloween, in the absence of what's emerged over the last couple of years, Halloween night this year will be a Halloween like no other if the structures that were put in place across communities in Dublin are not able to operate as they have been. So talking about the people who organise the parades, the people who organise the fancy dress, worked with the kids in the youth clubs for months in advance, helping them to do up their costume or build the little warehouses that you're turning into fun factories. If all of that stops, what we'll go back to is the scenes that we witnessed 4 and 5 years ago, where communities are effectively under siege, where there was running battles on the streets, and on Halloween night that was always kind of a genuine fear, and through extraordinary community leadership we were able to combat that. But this year that is under threat, and we've already seen since July that we've had a build-up. That will come to a crescendo if we don't take ownership of the problem now. And that's going to need to start from the department. It's going to have to work its way down through all deputies in this chamber. It's going to have to allow us to engage with the local authorities who are the funding mechanisms for these initiatives, and to try ensure that actually we can be positive and not just wake up in the start of November and think we missed an opportunity there and the community suffers as a consequence. So we still have time to actually solve this, and I really do hope that we act upon that. Thank you, Leslie Corley.